This time on No Not the Mind Probe, episode number 68. It's just a show for babies.
Welcome to No, Not the Mind Probe.
Oh,
Is that Mickey? I thought it was a Mickey. Is it a pretty good
it's
Mickey?
kind of like Mickey. It
No,
was like
not the Mind Probe.
it was like a scared Mickey too.
Mickey Meese, of course, so as not to violate anybody's copyright. It's a very childlike voice.
Or I think we could say that it was Oswald the Rabbit. And we'd be okay on that.
Yeah, I think that's okay, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that historically. I don't know what parts of Disney they're most litigious about. I know you can do whatever you want with the black hole, which apparently that they just didn't care about that one at all. It was a fantastic, dark movie. Anyway, this isn't a movie; it's a podcast, and it's one where we watch and rank every single Doctor Who story ever. My name's John Grant. So there. Sorry, that came out more surprised. My name's John Grant, by the way. That is so yeah. This is reckon with that. I'm also a lifelong Doctor Who fan, so there's a lot of things coming out here. I've been watching it for 37 years.
And my name's Porter Mason.
Whoa. Hey.
Yeah. John has been asking me to watch Doctor Who for 25 years and about a year or so. So we're coming up on 2 years. We might have to redo this. A couple years ago, I finally said yes. Each episode of the podcast, we look at 2 Doctor Who stories. We go through the 21st century NuWho in order, and then our Doctor Who sommelier, John, pairs that with a classic story. John, what do we have in store for this episode?
Looking at the good bouquet here. Well, it's toys. It's toy time. It's time. Let's hit the toy room. Is the thing people probably say. Do you have a toy room? Your kids have a toy room, or
we have
your entire
kind
house?
of a playroom where we try to contain most of the toys too. Yeah.
Okay.
They don't. It's hard to do that. They make their way out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I assume your kids have the wheel with the stick that you run alongside and the little ball that goes in the cone.
Oh, yeah.
Classic
they're always
toys. Yeah, we
putting playing cards in their spokes, and then they're they're also always have young kids from the 1930s and 40s, and then also Greek heroes always have slingshots. That's always a big thing.
Yeah.
I don't know why they're given these weapons, but it's like, Perseus and then little kids from the 30s and 40s. That's
both of them have to try to slay giants, right? I mean, that's the thing kids can identify with. I mean, of course, when we were kids, I don't know what kind of sheltered life you grew up in. But when I was a kid, we had just whole arsenals of very realistic looking weaponry. I mean, we had guns because I don't know why, because our parents were deeply irresponsible. I don't understand how we got these guns or why that happened.
Do you remember? I remember hearing when I was older that toy guns were sort of forced by law, which, by the way, even before I finish that sentence, seems improbable that any law related to a gun is ever passed, but that were required by law to have like a red thing on the end as to indicate that is a fake gun.
Right.
And I remember hearing about that when I was in my 20s or something. And I thought, boy, I don't remember my toy guns having any red or any kind of distinguishing mark on them whatsoever.
They looked pretty real. They looked very real, and we shot each other regularly. I mean, interesting, we didn't want them to look real. We wanted Star Wars guns because my best friend and I, we played Star Wars. We didn't want. I mean, they did not have M16s and and Berettas in Star Wars, and we had to pretend that they were laser guns.
Yeah.
It's like adults were like, no, you play with a real looking gun, because that one day you're going to be staring down the muzzle of one in your 3rd grade classroom, and you better get used to it. Maybe that's what they were conditioning. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But there are no guns in these toy stores because this is the UK that we're seeing in this episode of Doctor Who. Perhaps some guns actually might have made it more exciting in a couple of them. But we are looking at the next Matt Smith episode, a solo Matt Smith. No Amy and Rory, or just a little flash of Amy and Rory. But James Corden returns. In closing time, which also brings back the Cybermen, very exciting episode, and I've paired that with a first Doctor episode. I hesitate to use the word exciting. It is really cobbled together at this point. I mean, you had to look at some telesnaps. You had to look at at least if you went on Daily Motion, there was one that was just entirely animated badly.
That's what I watched.
Yes. And then there was there is a live. The 4th episode still exists. And it is the William Hartnell First Doctor with Stephen and Dodo in the Celestial Toymaker.
All right, let's start with the NuWho. We watched, as we mentioned, we're closing in on the end of season 6 here, so series 6, as they say. It's story number 223, closing time. This is episode 12, so we just have one more in the 6th series, and we have Matt Smith. I was going to say we have Amy and Rory. They, as of the end of the last episode, they moved on, very just unceremoniously moved on.
What? Bye.
Well, actually, I mean, the Doctor moved on from them. Not that, who knows.
This aired. The house. Good luck.
This aired the 24th of September 2011. Just 145-minute episode, and I think we already mentioned with a special guest star James Corden reprising his role from previously.
People demanded it,
and we have a little clip here, and I'll go ahead and play that.
Going out. Unknown sound wave detected. It is the sound of fear. It is irrelevant. We will remove all fear.
Alfie, I'm so sorry. Alfie, please stop. I can't help it.
Emotions eradicated. Conversion complete. Alert. Emotional subsystems rebooting. This is impossible.
He can hear him. You can hear Alfie. Oh, please, just give me this. Craig, you wanted a chance to prove you're a dad. You are never going to get a better one than this.
What is happening?
What's happening, you metal moron? A baby is crying, and you better watch out, because guess what? Daddy's coming home!
All right.
Yes. Babies in love.
I will.
Yeah, you knew I was going to like this one.
I will. Were you rooting for the Cybermen to eradicate all emotion? Where you're oh, great.
Like,
that would be fantastic.
He's just like, screw the baby. That'd be like a dark ending of the episode, but I mean, and the baby ends up in social services.
Well, I will say it didn't catch me when I was watching it, but I was listening to this clip, being, having served with newborn babies, the just repeated crying of a baby just slowly does start to drive. I was like, oh God, please just stop the baby. Please stop the baby from crying. Drove me a little insane. Okay, so
smothering it? I mean, what's your instinct? Is like by any means necessary, or are you like, hey, we should probably make it happy first, or are you just like, I will do whatever it takes?
Look,
like,
there's your instinct, and then there's what you do because you live in the world of morality. But we all have instincts. That's why the human race survived. Is parents tried to suffocate their children, and the stronger ones would survive. Okay, so this is interesting because the Wikipedia page, I didn't necessarily see this as so, and maybe this was mentioned at the beginning and I missed it. But it says the 11th Doctor is on a farewell tour of his friends. Now, I don't. Is this the only tour? I mean, he left Rory and what is
right? He visited like 5 of them at the end of when he was David Tennant in like 10 minutes, and then this one's just like get one.
He's like, I guess I'll check out James Corden. Like, that's it.
He does indicate at the beginning, like, hey, I'm he knows he's going to die because he has figured that out from the thing. He's like, all right, and I guess he kind of comes by. I was like, yeah, I thought I'd check in on you. And
like, I guess we kind of had a rapport. I don't know.
Right. I mean, like, it'd be like if I found out I was going to die and then I like went to visit your brother-in-law or something like that. Who is nice, like, but I've only met like once.
Yeah, we've met. Anyway, we visit Craig and James Corden's character's named Craig. And this was a lovely one-off episode, I believe, about a year prior, right? It was,
Yeah, the Lodger last season. About in the same spot, I think. Yeah.
And a similarly Dr. Light episode. And
Companion Light.
Sorry, Companion Light. So anyway, he shows up, and in that episode, he had been getting together with this woman that was sort of the ultimate thrust of that episode is he got together with this woman who they'd always been shy about. They both had unrequited love for each other somehow.
Yeah.
They're living together happily, and they just have a newborn baby. And it opens with his wife or partner leaving, and very worried about him being at home with the baby by himself. And everyone's like gonna look out. Oh, my mom and dad are gonna call, and your mom and dad are gonna call, and everyone's gonna visit. He's like, I'm fine. I can cope with the baby. I'm fine. And
Now,
then
did this happen to you? When were you first allowed to be alone with a child? And how bad did it go? How many alien monsters attacked you?
No. Well, no monsters. So,
okay,
but
that's always
that's
good
just luck. I mean, that had nothing to do with my care. I don't think that was such a big like ways off. Maybe I'm misremembering that, but it wasn't like, oh God, Porter's with the baby. Oh Lord, it was like, no, I was around taking care of the baby regularly. That wasn't a big thing. So
you fall back on Mrs. Probe, don't you? I mean, like, what do we do? It's hungry. What should we do? And she's like, feed it. And like, all right.
Well,
text you that information
after a certain amount, maybe with the first baby, but after like even a month or two with that, and once you realize there's like only 3 answers to the baby, it's to your point, it's, well, is the baby hungry? Does the baby's diaper dirty? And does the baby need to sleep? And usually once it's crying, the thing is you go through such a mania with them. They're like, I don't know what's going on. And then they're like, well, is it hungry? Oh yeah, well, you haven't eaten in a while. I was like, well, then feed the baby. Like, it's like you could just go through, and literally you can call the doctor and they'll just ask like, is the baby eating? Are they going to the bathroom? And the sleeping is, they're not going to say, are they unable to sleep? Because like some babies are like that. But eating and peeing and pooping, it's basically like, yeah, that's basically just get a big checklist. Those are it. Like, just keep checking that over and over again.
Do you get a sign and the baby has to point to what it wants, or do you have to just work through the checklist? I guess you just work through it.
That's what I'm saying. It will. Hopefully I described it well. It's a two thing checklist.
Yeah, fair.
So you just kind of like look through.
And just for context for listeners, Porter has a lot of experience here. He has had 7 children, and 2 of them made it.
Yeah, I mean, and look,
he's doing really well.
I think that's good. Those are good numbers. So he's kind of able to cope. The doctor shows up, kind of like, actually, kind of like what you described. The doctor just shows up suddenly, like, "Hey, it's me," and he's like, "Oh, great,
you're back, great." We were close, right?
And then I'm not going to go into great detail on the story, and then a big plot thing kind of tacked onto the end, which maybe we can also talk about almost separately. But it's a pretty straightforward story in the sense that this isn't one of those Doctor Who stories where I maybe frustratingly, because we're kind of waiting for the culmination of this River Song stuff. It's like, yeah, by the way, in the meantime, the Cybermen just kind of swooped in here. They might take over the Earth. Never mind. They're dispatched with. It's very just like one and done. Like, it's a monster of the week.
The Cybermen really never get used well throughout the series. It's interesting. The Cybermen,
they're such cool characters.
Yeah, and they have an interesting idea behind them and the whole conversion thing and all that. And they try to do some, and every once in a while there's a decent one. But even in the original series, they never quite used well, and nobody seems to. And the interesting parallels is people have always said, well, the Borg stole from Star Trek: The Next Generation, stole the idea from the Cybermen. In a lot of ways, the drive to convert people and blah blah. It's like, but the Borg are very interesting and exciting to watch. So how did this happen? How did they get it right?
And the Borg, the way the Borg are treated, I guess I can see that parallel if it's described, but maybe it's just because the Borg does it so much better. You're like, oh no, I didn't. A lot of this didn't even really come across with the Cybermen. Anyway, we find that there's a ship there again, just like magically underneath this toy store.
Yeah,
and they're going to take over the world. And anyway, the Doctor's trying to stop them. Craig steps in, and there are some moments here also where they're trying to, the aspect I would say of the plot of the Doctor plot they're moving forward is the Doctor is resigned to his fate and also just feeling like, what have I even really done? He's very, he's kind of questioning everything in his life.
Which is annoying, because if you've saved the universe multiple times, like if you are like, what have I done with myself? Then both you and I have actually accomplished great things too, not universe-saving things. But people be like, "No, you don't really have anything to be grateful about." But then you get this character like, "Oh, what have I really done with myself?" It's like, I lived a couple thousand years and saved the universe multiple times. So I don't know that.
Well, I guess that's sort of the point, because James Corden's trying to build him up, and remember, James Corden knows two stories about the Doctor. He just sort of knows
immediately.
He knows,
remember, he got the headbutt, and so he actually knows a ton about the Doctor. He knows all the backstory, how many lives the Doctor's had, and stuff like that. So maybe he does know a lot. Maybe that's why the Doctor comes.
No,
remember, he headbutts him and gives him all the information.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so anyway, the big kind of moral, of the story here, the fairy tale of it all is that James Corden is captured and nothing the Doctor can do to save him, and he's going to be turned. And by the way, he's going to get quite a promotion. He's going to be the consciousness of all the Cybermen. I mean, this isn't a bad, maybe just stop a second and think before you try to get out of this.
You raise the baby, and we actually don't. The last we left him, he worked in answering phones somewhere.
Like a telemarketer.
I don't even know what he does now. Who knows?
He's he's selling diet pills to the home to the indigents. So
is that a thing people need to do? Hey, starving people, have you thought about eating less?
I guess shut-ins. I guess the shut-ins. I'm not saying they're meant.
No, I kind of like. Honestly, that's a good idea, because if you gave the homos appetite suppressants, they'd be like,
I feel great. I feel like $1 million.
Yeah, right. Hey, if you're listening, probers, it's $1 million idea right there. I don't know who's going to pay you, because the homeless can't, but somebody will probably give you $1 million.
Well, we've been meeting to start a new wing of No Not the Mind Probe Philanthropy, and I think this would be a great first charity to roll out.
Pro Probo.
Pro bono. So, but the big moment is, and it seems all is lost, and then we realize the Doctor patches in the sound of Alfie, great name by the way.
Yeah,
Alfie crying.
Well, not his real name, because he prefers to go by Stormageddon.
Right. Yeah, the Doctor claims to be able to talk to the baby earlier on, and that he likes the name Stormageddon.
Megalomaniac, I guess. It's a little unclear, really, I guess.
So, but the power of the Father's love is what breaks the chains here. And then what I think is funny, and I think we've had discussions about this in another episode, is really it's one of those kind of things like, the power of love is what gives him the strength to break through this and stop this. It unlocks this special thing about the human spirit. But then when it's back, either he or someone else is discussing it, and the Doctor's like, well, it's not just the power of love, it's actually
some cycling,
deep-seated blah blah blah, and he goes into the science mumbo jumbo, and then he can't even finish. He's like, I don't know, maybe.
Can you attest to? So as I believe all parents at one point or another have single-handedly lifted a car off their child, right? Have you had how many children have been trapped under a car? And then have you lifted the car off the child using just your own adrenaline and power of love? Basically.
Well, first of all, when you have kids, people just begin hurling cars at you. That's just the thing that happens. And I didn't ask
you won't do anything to shut up that damn crying. So one has to take it out of your own hands, frankly.
No, that's actually, for me, not with everyone maybe, but for me, crying in public is even worse, because then I have the dual thing of the crying is driving me insane, and then the shame of oh my god, the child's crying, everyone's gonna think I'm terrible, and so that's the worst. I just immediately
throw the car on the child to smother it, to shut it up, and then you're like, oh no, I shouldn't have done that, and then you lift the okay, gotcha. So it's a double strength thing.
That's right. No, nothing like that, but you certainly do kind of. Really what it is that your brain shuts off certain governors when you have to do certain things with children, where you feel like, I'm being called to do this, I have to do this. And so I can imagine something like that happening, where it's like your brain, it's that whole idea of using only parts of your brain or whatever. I can imagine someone kind of unlocking a brief little surge of strength or know-how or something, because they just feel driven to do it. It's like nothing in your brain is telling you you can't do that, and so you
based on television, because of course as eagle-eared probers might have picked up, I don't have but I watch a lot of TV shows, a lot of cop shows, and one thing I know is that if a child is out of sight of a mother for more than 10 seconds, the mother completely collapses, just a complete disaster, unable to function, hysterical. And that's just, all women are portrayed that way on television. It's just one of the most obnoxious things about
it is obnoxious, but at the same time, especially when you have young kids, and not just women, certainly me too, if you have this brief fleeting feeling of like, wait, where are they? And you realize like, I'm not exactly sure where they are, because it's again, and it's the dual thing of you are genuinely a little bit like scared, but also you feel this deep shame of like, oh my God, it's the one thing I'm supposed to do. Where's the damn kid? And so no, you don't break down like that, but you do have like a big shot of adrenaline anytime that happens.
I think it's Jim Gaffigan. I was listening to some old Jim Gaffigan recordings. Of course, it's brilliant. And if you don't listen to Jim Gaffigan, you should. You should probably just turn this podcast and
what are you
doing?
Jim Gaffigan,
because he's great. And Jim, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on. But he's
Jim. You don't need to turn off the podcast because
you
I mean,
yeah. And you're probably working on new material. He puts out a lot of albums.
He does.
But he has a thing where he's like, if you ever lost your kid in a shopping mall and you have to go ask, they're always with mall security. He goes, and you're not as convincing when you're holding a corn dog and asking them where the kid.
Well, anyway, the other thing that happened in this episode, there may be other things we want to talk about, is at the very end, we get a little dollop of story.
You know what this is called in the biz? It's called a stinger.
Stinger.
A little sting in the tail, Porter.
And we're in the future. River's there.
Whoa.
And she is researching stuff about the doctor. She notes the date, location of the doctor's death. And then we see Madame Kovarian, who we've met once before, something like that.
Well, her face kept appearing to Amy, right? And then she was at the at Demon's Run. She's at the Good Man Goes to War episode, yeah. And then and then we
don't know much
after that
about her.
No, we don't know much about her. She's got an eye patch, and she
got an eye patch. We see the silence. We've heard about the silence for a while, and then Madame Kovarian says River that tells River that she's going to be the one to kill the doctor, and they're going to mind control her or whatever.
Well, they put her in the suit. They put her in the
and you suit. See them putting her in the astronaut suit. So did we know that already or no?
We knew it was a biosuit that they were building. We did not know that River is the one in the suit. So this is the big reveal that it's River who's in the astronaut suit, and River's the one who's going to kill her. Although we all knew she was obviously going to be the one, but this is the one they revealed.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I can't explain that then, because when I watched it, I was like, yeah, sure. Like, it wasn't like some big reveal to me. I don't know why. I think it was because of that. No, but didn't they hint at it when in the Hitler episode?
Well, she's supposed to. She was raised to kill the doctor. She was born to kill the doctor or whatever. Amy had the child. She's the Time Lord. They kidnap her. She was in TARDIS, so she's got time-y things. They kidnap her at some point. And then they get her back in A Good Man Goes to War, but she turns out to be plastic. Oh no! And then she blorps into a thing, and then we don't actually know what happens to her after that. Then they go several episodes without mentioning it at all. And then, at some point, they writing this episode, they were like, we should probably make some forward momentum on that season arc. And they tack this bit on.
They like looked at their watches, like, "Are we on episode 12?
Oh boy,
gosh,
we should have developed this plot." And then just like, but we did not. So remember, the astronaut comes out of the water in the season premiere and shoots him, but we never see who's in the suit.
Well, no, I know that. I guess what I mean is, it didn't feel like a huge surprise because of the other episode.
Kept saying for years, like, oh, she's killed a really good man, and she's done. I was just like, yeah, well, obviously it's the doctor.
Oh, she was raised to kill the doctor. That's what I mean. Anyway, so that happens. Is there anything else we want to talk about with this?
What if it was like, what if it turned out she killed Martin Luther King, and we're like, oh well, that is. I mean, sure, but it's not.
And then we were like, ho hum. I guess that's fine.
This is do you like James Corden? So a lot of people have very strong reactions to James Corden as a human being and are very upset by his very existence.
I don't really understand that. He's fine. I've seen his talk show some. I don't really watch talk shows that much, but his seems fine. His talk shows always seem very like they're very full of joy and fun. Like, it's just always very just let's have fun. And I have enjoyed watching him in these episodes because I think I enjoy him as an actor. I didn't even know he was an actor. I thought he was just like kind of a gadfly song and dance person. Like, I didn't think he seemed to do, like, I don't know. I just didn't know that.
Yeah, he does a lot of theater, but yeah, that's different than this. Yeah, that's bigger. No, I think he's good. I like him. I think he's good. I think it's nice. Matt Smith, I think without a little Rory and Amy is actually nice. He gets a little space to do something because obviously he's going to die next episode, so it's important to knock this out. We see the Cybermets, which I don't know if we we did.
Yes,
we saw them in Tomb of the Cybermen. Yes, this is like the first time they came back to the new series.
They're pretty stupid.
Yes, they are. They continue to be dumb, but they are.
What a dumb thing to bring back.
Yeah, well, they blip around and do stuff. Does it bother you? So here's the thing that
I'm sorry. I'm just going back to the Tomb of the Cybermen. I remember when they like surround Jamie at one point, and it's like they're so.
What are we gonna do? How do we do this?
Right, and they can only afford like 3 or 4 of them, and they're like, "We're surrounded." It's like there's 10 feet between them. Like, they can run for it. But anyway,
well, now they have teeth and they can jump a little bit.
That's pretty cool.
So they attempt to revitalize their image, but I'm not sure it works. Does it bother you? I don't know why this bothers me. And again, I can't decide if I'm being unfair to women or if I'm being nice. I'm being standing up for women. I don't know. Am I a white knight? Am I a white knighting here, or am I being a condescending male? It's hard to tell. But we see Amy and Rory. And it's apparently in their future a little bit where they're in the store, right? And then we see Amy as the model for the perfume or something. It bothers me that she's a model, and maybe now I'm actually ripping on models. I was just like, oh, you traveled around with a doctor and you did all these things, and you're obviously very cool and smart and all this, and now you just do perfume ads. Like the perfume is like, I forget what it was called, but it was like for the girl who waited.
Yeah, right. Yes.
I know it bothered me. I don't know why. That just bothered me. I'm like, come on, like Sarah Jane was a reporter, and a lot of the other ones did other stuff. But it's like, I went back and I became a model. And I'm sorry to all the models out there. And Porter, I'm sorry. Porter is a model as well.
I'm
sorry.
It's okay. We're misunderstood. My field is misunderstood. I don't know. Yeah, it does seem to be putting too much on her looks, which they've done a few times. She is beautiful.
Yeah, she's gorgeous.
But so are all the companions generally. So I don't know. It does seem like to give her a little bit of a short shrift. At the same time, modeling always seemed to me like the kind of work where it's like, well, if you can get it, then it seems like pretty good work. I know some of them, it becomes this cutthroat thing. I think trying really hard to be a model sounds like a terrible job in existence. But if it falls into your lap, if someone, that happens sometimes where they're just like, maybe you're an actor or something like that, you're just known, and then they're like, hey, you want to just model stuff? Like, that seems great because it's like, you didn't have to do anything, and they're just like, just show up, and we're gonna blow a hairdryer on your hair, and film you for a while, and you get a lot of money. And that sounds good.
True. I mean, there's always, anytime there's always this little bit of jealousy. It was just like, because basically someone came up to you and was like, wow, you're insanely good looking, and people just want to look at you.
Will you be good looking
in front of other people?
Will you just do what you're doing? Just keep doing that, and then I'll film you. Is that okay?
People will pay money to see you without your shirt on is a phrase no one has ever said to me. Probably won't.
Well, I don't know. Now, John revealed in the pre-show that he's been working out. So
I have, but this is especially if you're gay, the thing is you can never. I could be like, hey, I've got an 8-pack abs, and then people will be like, oh, I have a 12-pack, and you just come on, how do you get that?
Since we're talking about comedians, a great joke that one of my favorite comedians, Nate Bargatze, has is he got a diet video or an exercise video, and they're showing the before and after picture, and he's like, the before guy looks pretty good to me. Like, I'd like to, that could be my goal if I could just get to that. That sounds great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Amy, anyway,
Anyway,
we are gonna pick up this storyline. It is a long.
It'd be nice to just finally. I feel like this is. And maybe this is downplaying Russell T Davies, but it's having the feeling of one of these Russell T Davies things where it's like, this has been so long. I just want to know what it is like, and it feels very different. We'll talk more about it in the next episode because I believe it's going to somewhat be wrapped up.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. A good chunk of it. Yeah.
It's getting the feeling of some of the Russell T Davies stuff, or sorry, it's feeling distinct from the first Girl Who Waited, or just basically the Amy marriage plotline, which I feel like, to me, that has been the best season runner thing that we've had.
It was
in all
rolled
the
out slowly. There were little bits, and then Rory comes in the middle. There's good stuff.
It's great. We do take some departures from it, but never long enough so that we're thinking like, wait, was something else going on? This is what I feel like has been happening with River. A few episodes go by and you're like, wait, something else was happening, wasn't it?
Where was she supposed to
It's
be?
like, oh yeah, he's about to die in any moment.
Leave to do something. Yeah.
All right, well, let's go to our classic Who. This is the Celestial Toymaker. It is 4 parts. It aired the 2nd through the 23rd of April, 1966. It's only the 24th story ever. And this is the first Doctor, though it is light on the Doctor.
Yep. And there's a reason for that. They all hated him.
Oh, is that part of the the movie?
A lot of behind the scenes drama in this story.
So we hear about that. He is made invisible and told to go away, essentially.
And his voice is taken away. They're like, so we got this great part for you. You're invisible and no one can hear you speak. We love you. You're great. But now this is what we've written for you.
And we'll talk. Well, actually, before we play the clip, I'll just mention again that this is quite hard to see. We can only really see it on Daily Motion. I actually did watch the animation for one of it because I just can't watch the telesnaps at a certain point. I can't focus on it. Yeah. It ends up just being a radio play, and then at least the movement of the thing kind of helps me focus on it. But neither of them are great. And then the 4th episode is available. So, and the very, very beginning of the 1st. So that's how you have to watch this, and that certainly does color it. Our opinions, I'm sure. But let me play this clip that you have selected here from.
You're in it now. You might as well.
The Celestial Toymaker.
What have you done? Stop meddling with my ship.
It isn't what I have done, but what you have not done. You must finish the game. You cannot leave here until you have.
Your infantile behavior is beyond a joke.
No. Of course, I mustn't. You very nearly caught me then.
Make your last move, Doctor. Make your move.
But if I do, this place vanishes.
And then you have won completely?
And if this place vanishes, then the TARDIS and the rest of us will vanish also.
Correct. That is the price of success. Make your last move, Doctor. Make your last move.
All right, and that was, what is his name?
Michael Gough.
Gough, who is very well cast.
Reminds me of
is he?
Yeah, Alfred from Batman. The newer ones, but the original Michael Keaton Batman. That was Alfred.
Oh wow! It's funny you were going to say that because he reminds me very much of like a 1960s Batman era villain, like that. Yeah, he's that kind of a he's got a big dress up thing going on, and
he's dressed as a Mandarin, which I think might be slightly racist, but
But it's in telesnaps. You can't be racist in telesnaps.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's the old saying goes. You can't be racist in telesnaps.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go through this very quickly, and then you can just talk about whatever's interesting here.
This is funny, actually, going to do because I was looking around, just generally. Every once in a while I look around, and I was looking at other podcasts, and I'm not going to mention a name here, but I'm just curious if anyone else has done Celestial Toymaker, and I found another podcast.
Okay.
You have often said that you do the best episode summaries ever. You mention it constantly to other people. And,
yes, you always. Yes.
Well, this one, they go through it almost line by line, but someone else is telling it. I talk about it, and I think I gave up after about 40 minutes. But they had a podcast discussing the Celestial Toymaker that goes for 2.5 hours.
Oh man, and that's the only thing they talk about.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So, folks, if you're tuning in for this one, you're welcome.
Well, I guess it's funny because it's like, what do we hope to gain from going through from recapping? I mean, part of it is just
having an existential crisis in our podcast.
What
is this all for, everybody?
It's been 68 episodes. I guess
it just stops.
I guess I'm just
what are we doing?
What is
children?
Because we could just, I guess my point is we could just begin.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just like, but I think the idea is we just kind of talk through it so that I can say, here's what I got out of this. What was what did I miss?
So that fill in the gaps for you. Yeah.
Sort of part of it. And then it also then gives us, somewhat of a backbone to then get through particular parts of the story. But the it should definitely not be like, hey, we're dissecting it in such detail that hey, don't even bother watching it because we'll just talk you through it. No, in fact, what I think it may serve as, if nothing else, is, well, listen to this. If that sounds remotely interesting, please feel free to watch it. But if not, then we've at least saved you about 80 minutes of your life.
Right. I mean, we're critics. We are television critics.
It stinks.
I don't know who's a television critic, actually.
Gene Shalit. I forget his name. Gene Shalit. Well, anyway. Okay. So here's what happens in this. I'm really going to go quickly, which is just to say, the doctor's invisible.
Yeah.
So it's Dodo and who?
Steven. It's a big old Steven.
Dodo and Steven. And they go outside and they've I don't know, whatever. They've crash landed here. They're in the realm of the Celestial Toymaker, who he describes himself as. He's this being who exists, and he has so much power. He has all the power, and he delights. He's like one of the Greek gods. Like he's like, oh, I will put these mortals through some little games for my amusement. And
he's got all the power. Like, what's your deal, buddy? Hey, I got all the power.
A lot of power
right here.
So a couple things happen. One, the doctor is with the Toymaker, and they start to play a game called the Trilogic game, which is
fiendish.
I don't know.
It's a fiendish
they start to
game.
Play.
It's called. So interestingly, for those, I don't know how many people play Learn to League, which is a trivia thing. It's actually called the real game. I believe is called the Towers of Hanoi.
Tower of Hanoi.
But it is a game that exists. I played it it was an early computer game when I was in elementary school on an Apple IIe, the Apple, the real Macintosh,
school ones, yeah.
And it was done with tiers of cakes, and you would move the 3 cakes, and you would have to learn to. I don't know why this is useful.
No, wait. While you were doing this on the Mac, was there a fey costume gentleman behind you going, yes, make your moves, your cake slices?
My second grade teacher, he was arrested later.
Oh, God. All right, so then Steven and Dodo, they're just sent through a series. We can go through details if you want. It's a series of other challenges.
Of dumb games.
There's some clowns. They're weird. They
cards.
Meet Sergeant Rugg, and they play another game with them. Oh, Mrs. Wiggs, and then they get trapped. There are a bunch of mannequins, and they get trapped in a dance contest or whatever with one of them. And then they finally make it to the TARDIS, but it's fake.
Yeah,
and then they're playing a game of hopscotch.
Zero.
And this is a great. I just want to read this. I'm going to quote directly from Wikipedia on this. Dodo and Steven find themselves in a vast game of hopscotch against Cyril, who slips on a triangle and is electrocuted. So that's true.
That Cyril is dressed as a schoolboy, acts like he's a young schoolboy. He's clearly played by a 50-year-old man.
He reminds me of the character from Pee-wee's Playhouse in the Pee-wee movie, who is the heavier set gentleman who plays like Pee-wee's sort of evil neighbor, and it has a similar vibe of acts like he's a child, but it's like, you're definitely 40 years old, so I don't know what this is.
And I don't know what they were going for. I don't know if they were like, this is the closest thing we could find to a child. We had a lot of casting calls, or if it was intentionally like he'd been there for a long time.
I think it's purposeful. Yeah.
And
it was scarier that way too.
I actually this isn't a great episode. I actually thought he did a very good job.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job. Well, anyway, basically they get in there, and then the doctor wins the game. So it's like, okay, well, I guess we won the game.
There we go.
And that's it. I mean, there's no plot to speak of. They just do this series of games, which again, one of the things you have to count against it, unfortunately, is that we're just not watching it. We're watching it in such a bad, and it is particularly a story that doesn't really do well without seeing the visuals and kind of seeing this really.
There's supposed to be a giant dollhouse that he keeps getting the toys out from and turning them to life, and I think they grow and shrink and all that kind of stuff. I think that kitchen scene where they hunt the key, where they're looking for the thing. I think that's supposed to be visually dynamic and interesting.
I want to mention one other thing before you prattle on about whatever you want to say about this episode. In the computer animated remake, one of the things I enjoyed is that I'd watched the telesnaps for the first one or two, and then the third one I watched that when it came on. I was like, oh, this computer model of Dodo is very buxom and and seems to be in a sort of like 1960s area mini skirt. It was not what she was wearing on the show for that particular show. So I was like, I guess there's some artistic license here.
She did have a tank top and a big circle on her chest, in the middle of her chest, and it was a very weird outfit. This is one of the more famous ones of ridiculous 60s outfits. This could have worked. So this, you could see this in the hands of like Russell T Davies or Stephen Moffat being like, oh yeah, it's like a creepy playroom and these toys, like all the toys would have had backstories. And there is a hint like that, oh, they'd actually been there forever and were trying to win their way out of the game. And they would have all had tragic backstories. And, one of them would have been gay and all of this nonsense that you have to deal with now. But it would have been much more interesting, and they could have been much more sinister. I think the games could have been more complicated. I mean, I grant you don't want to tax the audience too much, but there's a thing hidden in the room, and we have to find the thing. Seems a little, that's not the most complex puzzle. There are 7 chairs. You throw a doll in a chair to see which one gets electrocuted. Does not seem, again, like the most difficult thing to work out. So it could have worked, but it was a mess behind the scenes. They were changing producers, script editors were coming in and out. The original writer, Brian Hales, who wrote this, who wrote The Smugglers, so not one of our better ones, but also created The Ice Warriors, wrote The Curse of Peladon, and some of those. So it's both good and bad. He wrote the draft and then was like, I'm busy now, and so someone else had to rewrite it, and they kept changing it. And so it was a mess behind the scenes. And so I think it just lost. It was originally, the book is much better, actually. And I think I did not, of course, didn't see this because it doesn't exist. And they didn't release these bits of missing ones or these reconstructions until much later. So I read the book first, and the book's very good, or better. It's still, the central premise is a little rough, but it does seem a little bit more interesting and sinister. They did, yes, they were, I think it was John Wiles as the producer at this point, did not like William Hartnell. They were looking for ways to get rid of him. There was some thought that they were going to make him invisible and take his voice away, and then when he came back, it was going to be a completely different person, which would not have been. I mean, at least your generation, they attempted it, and they're like, oh, hey, it's the Doctor. He's a little different now, but whatever. These things happen. So we're not working very hard on that. But they ended up not doing that. Michael Goff is very good, as you point out. Dodo is terrible. She's an idiot. No offense to Jackie Lane, who I think is trying her best, but they're all the things are clearly cheating at the games, and she's always like, no, we have to take it seriously, or oh no, he's really hurt, or like she just is duped every time. She's made into a complete idiot, which is very annoying. But here's the thing. Gather close.
It's Doctor Who, so you had to watch it.
Right. I had no choice. I've watched it 12 times. No. The speculation, and I can confirm nothing, I know nothing, is that this is who Neil Patrick Harris is playing in the upcoming series.
Oh, the Celestial Toymaker.
That seems to be there. Some people looked at the costume. I have no information. I'm only going on what people speculated on based on things that have been officially released. So this is not, I don't think this is a spoiler because I don't know. But that's the speculation, that Neil Patrick Harris might be playing the Celestial.
Like you said, the premise can work. No, the character has come back a few other times, right?
So it was supposed to come back during the Six Doctors era. And then that was the season that was canceled. They were basically like, the Michael Gray, who's the control of the BBC, was like, no, this series is terrible. Which, this is the Vengeance on Varus years and things like that, which I think we would agree. Probably right call. So they were going to do a season. They'd written an episode, but then it got canceled. They brought the character back for Big Finish, of course. Big Finish has brought every character back. A couple books and things like that. But what I think is interesting is that it's clear they've met before. This doesn't happen often in the Hartnell years, where it's like something he's familiar with them. They've obviously tangled with each other before. They have some relationship back and forth. and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. It's like, oh, this is interesting, potentially interesting history about the Doctor, and kind of sets up these characters. It's too bad, again, they were like, but we would prefer William Hartnell not speak. Because if you could have, it's like Michael Gough's a great actor, right? You could have had like a really good back and forth confrontation if you fleshed out their backstory a little bit more. But instead you get nothing.
So I wanted to update here. Francis Buxton is the name of the antagonist from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, who the last man-child reminded me of, played by Mark Holton. And then another thing I wanted to ask is, there are a lot of full color, really nice, I guess, photos of this episode.
Yeah, there's some behind the scenes color photos apparently.
Oh, behind the scene. I see. Yeah. Okay, because I was like, "What? Hey, we have all this. Why am I watching this animatronic busty dodo?"
There's an entirely. They found it actually a couple of months ago. There's a full color story of just. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. That's on me. That is on me.
Go to sleep, little theme. Have no fear. Go to sleep, little theme. Don't have a beer.
Is that a thing you have to tell your kids? Hey, put down that beer and go to sleep.
It's a common nursery lullaby. It's a common lullaby that we have in our family.
You guys, your kids drink a lot.
And they drink. Anyway, we're adhering to the repeating themes here. We like to talk about stuff that happens more than once.
We both are like, yeah. They really do.
We like to talk about things that happen, and then when they happen more than once, we talk about them again because then they've presented themselves as themes. John, what's the theme you wanted to talk about with the stupid dumb kids baby show?
Well, that's the question. Is it a stupid dumb kids baby show? Because I think we've talked about this before, but that was at the very beginning. I think
maybe a long time ago. Yeah,
and now you've had time to digest it, to think about it, to sit in your study and reflect. Smoke your little pipe and look into the ashes of the fireplace while your children play about your feet. And I mean, is Doctor Who a kid's show, right? I mean, here we go. I mean, Celestial Toymaker, I can see it being appealing to kids because it's playing cards get electrocuted. Kids love that. But I don't know what how many your kids have watched a few episodes. Have you put them back in front of the box and said, "Hey, watch this"?
No,
it's a flat screen, Dad. It's not a box anymore. And you're like,
we have not watched many together in a long time. I don't know particularly why.
Have you seen your kids in a while?
Yeah, they pass through. We kind of give a little nod, like, "Hey, what's up?" But then
so still doing that podcast, and you're like, "Yeah, no, why?"
yeah. And then there's like an awkward pause, and then they're like, "Well, all right, I'll see you," and then they head off to read Pete the Cat books.
Yeah.
So I partly that's because I tend to, when I'm making time to watch the show for the podcast, is usually it's like, oh, they're asleep, so let me watch. I'm not like watching them during a time, where they'd be around, but they're also not like super interested. Like, hey, let me make sure I watch that. I don't know. I have a really different opinion, I think, about most of. I think I have a stronger opinion about the newer show, which I don't think the newer show feels like a kid's show at all. I don't know that kids would really enjoy it, but maybe I'm wrong. Can we first talk about that?
Yeah.
Since the reboot, does it have a good viewership amongst kids?
Yeah, I think it's still so and I think this is a reflection of fans who one of the lines from the early series was, or maybe not the early, but as it went along, it was aimed at intelligent 12-year-olds, 11, 12, right? So it's like, all right, it's because, but I mean, again, that might be self-described, right? I mean, that's who I was, right? It's like, oh, it's aimed at the geeky 12-year-old who
you're saying the newer series.
No, the original.
Well, okay, so the original,
so I think the original, but then those are the fans that are now writing it now, and I think that's still what they're thinking, right? That it's gonna be, we're gonna aim it at this sort of target, and then it's always been called that's what it's called, the children's show that adults love, right? And it's like, it is the thinking, at least, or at least the lip service is, it is for kids on a level, but grown-ups like it too. But you know, I mean, similar to Star Wars. I don't know, is Star Wars for kids?
I think Star Wars feels more firmly for kids than this. Than the new show. So the old show I feel differently about. The old show does feel very much like for kids. And then there are occasions it stands out more when it's like, whoa, that doesn't feel like and there are maybe even whole seasons that are like that. I since I don't watch those in continuity, it's hard to know if they're just one-offs or whatever.
I mean, the occasional yellow face episode or
but that's different. That was friendly for kids at the time. So no, I mean, I think they're just more like there are some episodes that get into deeper, more existential stuff, or just get more into death and stuff like that. I feel like the new show trods in like all the time, like, or they're always talking about like existential dread and like what's my purpose in life, and it's sort of like I don't think kids care about this in the same way. But both of them traffic in a thing that I think is important for kids, like in that 10 to 12 range, which is sometimes we complain, or I definitely complain about. I think some of the episodes that fail are often have these like overly complicated plots that are just sort of stupid. I think that's perfect for like a 10-year-old, 12-year-old boy. They love that because they want to be able to say, if you hear a kid recite back a simple plot to you, they will complicate it, and they'll say, well, and then they actually went there, but we have to remember is that, and they like kind of connecting those details together. Even that maybe me watching it as an older person, I'm like, yeah, the intricacy doesn't like impress me in the same way if it's not getting to me emotionally or whatever. But for a kid who's 10 or 12, it's almost like just a puzzle that's being put in front of them. I'm sure that's what you enjoyed about it when you were little.
Yeah, I was figuring it out, right? I mean, so certainly, you know, and also when you're a kid, you like watching things over and over again, right? Which, you know, obviously I don't do now. That'd be silly, but but yes, it's like I would watch these as a kid, and they were probably too complicated because I wouldn't really follow it. And even kind of now, it was like, what's happening? Who's doing what? And then I'd watch it again and again, and then it would start to fall into place. And then you'd figure it out. You'd see the connections and things like that. So that was always interesting. So why wouldn't kids watch this? Is sort of too complicated, too scary, too graphically sexual. Obviously, just a lot of graphic sex. I guess too complicated captures everything you're saying.
Let's say violent is separate from scary. Too violent sometimes.
I mean, but fairy tales are. I mean, like kid stuff is violent all the time. What's your line on violence? Is it gore? Is it the nihilistic violence? I mean, are your kids watching Friday the 13th and loving it? I mean,
well, I don't know my exact line. Definitely, if it's just sort of like sadistic violence, I don't know. I would be uncomfortable with them watching that. But they also, it's really a kid by kid thing. Some kids really can't stand like anyone being hurt or put in danger until they're way older than I thought. Like my kids actually, I don't know, for whatever reason, they have not been as skittish around that. But we have had things where we'll be watching a movie. Well, I'm talking like Disney movies, which, as I think we've discussed on the podcast, sometimes Disney movies have very extreme things happen in them. Like parents are just dying left and right in Disney movies. There'll be something that they'll get scared and leave the room for, and we're all sitting around like, I don't understand what happened. They just like, yeah, there's a lava monster. It's clearly a monster. It's a cartoon made up thing, but it's just the danger was too much. They couldn't see that. So I think for some kids, even
except for that one child of yours who reacts totally unemotionally to things, right? Who just sits and watches people murder and just is like, "How interesting, father."
Cipher. Yes.
Why did the lady scream, father?
So humans scream when afraid, and then they have a little notebook. They just write down all this. Yeah. So I think kids possibly through 8, 9, maybe even 10 might even feel that way. So I definitely think like, I think by the time they're 12, there's no violence that's happening here that would be too scary for them.
Yeah.
So then it's really, to me, more of the emotional things and things like that. And then it's like, well, are there enough episodes of just sort of like silly costumes and battles and bad guys that would be enough for them. I just the episode that I really would like of the new one, actually, that I'd really like to sit down and rewatch with my 7.5-year-old is some of the early Amy Pond ones, because I thought they're really great. They're a great way into what's going on. It's a little girl that's in it. And so that is always great when there's a kid as a character in the show, even if they then grow up and you immediately, they have that thing that they can hook back onto the beginning. There was that little girl, like that was, at the beginning. So, but I don't know. The new one feels less, I guess the old one still feel, most of them, not all of them, but most of them feel like if it came on Saturday morning in the middle of cartoons, you'd be like, yeah, sure. Whereas like the new one, it was like, that would be weird if in the middle of Saturday morning cartoons like Matt Smith and Karen Gillan came out. That wouldn't, the tone doesn't feel
Which
right.
is interesting, because you do wonder if it's like our perspectives have changed. Before this, I was watching NCIS, and sometimes two characters talk at the same time, and that's a lot for me to handle. Like, I can only separate one voice at a time. Like, I need, and then if Ducky doesn't come on to explain stuff, I don't follow. But then I do think about like watching cartoons as a kid, like the real Ghostbusters and stuff. There were complicated things and scary things and all that kind of stuff. It's like, so maybe, I don't know, maybe my perspective is now skewed, where I'm just kind of like, I this is harder to handle then, but it's also like, well, maybe I didn't fully understand everything that was going on. I mean, that's the other thing too, right? It's like, now I watch some of these Doctor Who's, and I was like, oh, I didn't get what that was, 20 years ago or something like that.
And by the way, I don't know this, but my assumption is that the Marvel movies, like, everybody goes see those, right? Like, kids go see those, right?
Yeah, I would think. I mean, not Deadpool, but some.
Right. But I mean, like the kind of the mainline Avengers movies, and those have definitely way more violence than this, and some pretty complex stuff going on. So yeah, maybe we're not giving kids enough credit.
How old were you when you started watching James Bond? Because I would have been in high school.
That's a good question. I don't really remember it, but yeah, it would have been like at least like maybe junior high, but probably high school. But that has lots of sexy stuff too.
Right. Well, yeah, which was boring to me. Interesting about those is I used to watch those as a kid, and I was like, these plots are so convoluted. And now I watch them, and it's so stupidly simple. Like the Roger Moore ones are not remotely complex. But at the time, I was like, wait, now he's in Italy? Oh, now he's in Hong Kong? What is he doing? So, all right. So complexity, frightening. But you're a psychopath, children, not watching.
All right, John. Whew, how you doing?
Good. I think we made it through that. Good run. Yeah, it was a good little run. And we psychoanalyzed your kids, which they're going to appreciate that in a few years when they find these recordings and they're like, wait, you talked about us?
It's great. They'll save money on therapy. They can just listen to this. Kids, just remember, make a note here, episode 68. That's the one you want to listen to.
Yeah.
And then you don't need any therapy.
Which is when, and that's how that is how we advertise this podcast, is we'll mention it at the end of the episode. So, hey, this is the one you should watch, everybody. If you listen to this one,
here's what I think. Yeah. They're putting it on in the background just for like background noise as they're going to sleep. But then they will perk up when I say, hey, kids.
Hey.
Why where I reference my nameless kids. Hey, kids. Look, John, there's 299 official Doctor Who television stories, and it won't stay at that number for long. We're hurtling towards some new episodes of Doctor Who, as I understand
rumors
it.
Anytime now they're going to show a new one, but they're determined not to tell us.
What if that happens while you're on your trip and while you're going down a boat in the Nile, and then a Doctor Who episode comes out?
Well, obviously, I have a crack team, an extraction team. So there's a helicopter, speedboats come up alongside.
Don't have time to explain. You're gonna want to get in the boat now.
And then I'm hustled out of the room like dragging the president out of a team kicks.
And then Mike's like, and then your husband Mike's like, John, where are you going? We still have the trip to finish. Like, there's no time, and you just throw him in the river. Like, why am I not in the boat? And then you speed off. Yes, that will have that can and
that's
will
expensive, by the way, folks. So if you want to give any money, that is expensive to maintain that Who extraction team. That it's like 25 people that follow you around all the time. Yeah,
that's like a little splurge that you need, though. Like, it's just like every now and again I get a Starbucks coffee just because it's like, it's just
again, I
treat
didn't
yourself.
ask to become a broadcaster.
Yeah. No.
It was thrust upon me, and then you take this on, and now here we are.
Well, as I say, it's not a job; it's a calling. I
Yeah,
mean, like, you
right.
were really just it was thrust upon you.
And
Okay,
your
look,
repeated insistence, everyone, that we stop. Well, it's not working.
well, it's not working. Look, we've ranked 134 of these. We're gonna rank 2 more today. I will start. These were, I don't know, these were difficult because I didn't have super strong feelings, except one I was the closing time I was generally positive about, and the Celestial Toymaker I was generally negative about.
Yeah.
But closing time. I honestly ended up higher on my list. I think you asked if I like James Corden. Apparently, I do. I was like, I just sort of enjoyed this. I liked him and Matt Smith together. It was a very simple episode, but I thought it was enjoyable. And I kept going up the list until I got to 38. Actually, got to 38 with it, right below Planet of the Dead and The Next Doctor and Amy's Choice, and The Hand of Fear. Right above The God Complex, The Doctor's Wife, The Power of the Daleks, Night Terrors, Beast Below. So it was a kind of middle of the pack Matt Smith episode for me, but like maybe, yeah, I don't know, a little better than that. But all of his I have pretty high. Like I don't have a lot of them low. So that's that. And then the Celestial Toymaker. I explored if I wanted to put it in down there with Time Lash and the Daemons and things like that. But ultimately, I thought it's a little unfair. It's not that it's that bad. It's just it's a terrible way to watch it. So I stayed pretty low, but I put it at 104, just below Time Flight and Doctor Who and the Silurians, just above Curse of Peladon and Silver Nemesis. Yeah, so I tried not to dock it too much for the format. Not their fault. But yeah, again, definitely in the lower end of things, but not sort of the bottom of the barrel.
Okay. Yeah. Not bad. We're pretty much in agreement on closing time. I liked it. I don't like the Power of Love ending. I think it's clear. Unless they had scored it to the Power of Love. Now, if Huey Lewis had used that, then I might have talked about it. But sadly, they that was an own goal that they just could have had. I've got it down. I've got it higher than, again, maybe I expect to. It's not quite as good as The Lodger, which I had at number 30. So I've got Closing Time at number 47. It's right below Partners in Crime, which actually is a really good one. Maybe I should move Partners in Crime up at some point. I've got around Waters of Mars, which is a solid episode with a disappointing ending, which is that's how it ended up there. I thought, again, it's good. It's one I would come back to rewatch. I think everybody's enjoyable in it. Not hugely remarkable, which maybe does make it a lot like Partners in Crime, right? It's not like a hugely momentous story, but everything's enjoyable in it, and it's just fun to spend time with these people who we like. I did put Celestial Toymaker in the basement. You're being generous, I think, based on the format. But rewatching it again, I've held it in higher esteem in my head. I think because of reading the book, where obviously it's not constrained by all of the lack of it's not constrained by its not existing, which really helps. But yeah, watching or attempting to watch and listening to it again, I was disappointed by how good it could have been, and just like it's like, oh, these games are portrayed as if they're so fiendishly clever, but they're not. It's stupid. And Dodo drives me nuts. And of course, you don't get any William Hartnell. Michael Goff is pretty good. But anyway, I got it at number 130. I got it below Time Flight, which at least has, is a little bit faster paced, and just above Fear Her, which obviously, Fear Her is a line. A lot of us are. It's a line to cross, right? Like if you're going below Fear Her, you're making a statement, a major statement. So I was like, all right, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it there. So number 130.
It's so funny that Fear Her was so long ago that I'm like, I don't even remember why was it that bad? And I'm tempted at some point to watch it again because I remember really hating it, but I don't have a memory of why it was so bad. All right, well, when I put it into the computer here and I turn some dials and knobs, we end up with Closing Time clocking in higher than either of our rankings. So if this makes sense, I ranked at 38, you ranked at 47, but combined it's ranked 35. So figure that out.
I don't understand how math works, but I'm sure it somehow is right.
It works out. Basically, I think like we both agreed that it was up there, and some others we would have one of us agreeing, but the other one having it way lower, so that would bring it down. Anyway, it ends up at 35, just below the Caves of Androzani and just above the Unquiet Dead and School Reunion and things like this. Below Let's Kill Hitler. So anyway,
we would rather kill Hitler than watch Closing
Play
Time.
with toys or have a baby. So the Celestial Toymaker, your low ranking does send it down a bit. It's not quite in the bottom 10, but it is in the bottom 13. So it is number 122, and it is tied with The Long Game and Castrovalva. So two stinky episodes. And it's sort of right above Paradise Towers, which we had kind of flipped. I had that 130. You have it a little higher, 107. Celestial Toymaker, I had a little higher, but you have down at 130. So, So anyway, John, if you would like to see these rankings, you can go to MindProbe.
Not just me, anybody.
Really, anyone can go to mindprobe.show. I mean, it's a worldwide web. Like anyone can.
So they say.
They can go there and they can see our rankings that we just mentioned. You can kind of filter them to just see John or me's ranking or my ranking, John or my ranking, John's or my ranking.
Yeah, that's possessive. Yeah,
and then you can also filter by doctor. I'm not even going to check, but again, the Matt Smith episodes are ranking very highly. He's gonna end his run, I'm sure, the champion. To date, 100%. And you can also see the watch order if you want to watch along with us. You can subscribe to the podcast. We'd love it if you did that, and we'd love it if you shot us a rating on iTunes or Spotify or something like that. Those ratings help, and of course, share the podcast with friends.
Tell people about it. This is the number one MindProbe themed podcast in the New York, DC major metropolitan area.
Not bad.
And also, 4-block radius around Paul's Place in Amsterdam. So, I mean, that is a global reach.
Is that and those are the latest figures?
Yeah, those are the Nielsen, because thankfully Paul is a Nielsen family. That really helped, because if he was not, it would just be nowhere. We have fun.
Well, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, let's wrap this up. Not the podcast. Don't worry, folks. That's going for a while. But let's wrap this season up. I think we've had enough. I think apparently at the end of Closing Time, they all remembered that there was a running storyline that needed to be completed. So here we head into the wedding of River's song, and it's Matt Smith, it's Amy, it's Rory, it's River, it's I like Churchill,
it's Matt Smith, it's Amy. They know what they did.
That had a real talk radio thing to it. And the demented Joe Biden knows exactly what he's doing. But we'll come back to that next week. It's the big old season. It's a big old season finale. Which actually would have been a great title. What if they just called it Big Old Season Finale?
Big old season finale.
Like, and I've paired that with a season premiere, actually, because there's a lot of time paradoxes. So if you get confused, if we talked about just how complicated stories may be a turnoff, then prepare yourself, because Wedding River Song, definitely a big old complicated time paradox story. So we paired that with a third Doctor story. Now, again, steel yourself. I know you're disappointed. The Master is not in this one, and I'm sorry.
Well, at least it's on. It's only on Telesnaps, though, right? At least
I'll try to splice some Master footage in for you. Okay. But it is the third Dr. Joe, the Brigadier.
But I'm saying, hold on.
Everybody.
Is there actual video of it? Because that would be disappointing. I'd hate to watch actual.
Actually, so this one is so lost that it's just me sitting in a blank room in a chair explaining it. That is, and I have a. You remember how when you were a little kid and the teacher would read and they would show the pictures back and forth? I do that, but I only have one picture. I have the cover of the DVD. So I just, every 10 minutes, I just show that.
Just the same, just over and over, just regardless of context of the story. Good.
Yeah. But that's not today. That's That's in the future. Oh,
That's
sorry, I
next
didn't
week.
even say it's Day of the Daleks. That's the one you should watch. Anyway.
Day of the Daleks. Day of the Daleks. We'd love to hear that.
And their days in the future.
Ooh, I turned it up a little bit there. Day of the Daleks. Here's to the future.
Oh, now you turned it down.
Oh, and then I've turned it down. Well, let's play it again. Here's to the future. By the way, it's come to my attention.
Okay.
I'm gonna let people know. Probably not this episode. Maybe the next one, or maybe a couple from there. You mentioned that Here's to the Future. Like, yeah, we could play this. Who even cares about this? Well, there are copyright claims that have to do. They're apparently very poorly kept copyright claims. So basically, you just get notices saying like, "Hey, we know you have that copyrighted song in there. Not going to do anything about it, but just so you know, we know you know."
Have we been served?
No, we haven't been served. We haven't been served. It's just more of like you get notified when you upload the podcast to certain things, saying like, "Hey,
detection devices.
You have this copyright protected thing in it."
Ooh.
And so we may look to move to a different closing credit gambit.
No, you know what?
We can go back to our original. I'll
take us to court. Wait, come on, you bring us to court. It's a parody. We are parodying the future. It's free parody.
While we were parodying it, we were playing the exact song. We would have to record our own version. Then that would be something.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, we don't need to do it.
The answer.
can't stress this enough. We don't need to do that right now. That's not something.
I'm parodying it though.
I think I'm gonna find the old outro, and it's gonna return.
The old what?
We had an outro.
Oh, right.
You don't even remember.
I don't remember because we found this and it changed our lives. Not the podcast, the song.
Yeah. Mind Probe that show.